Hello, my name is Robbie Hutchins, and I'm the Area Forestry and Wildlife Extension Agent for the LSU Ag Center in Central and Southwest Louisiana. Today, I'd like to just talk a minute about the importance of conducting an annual tree inspection for trees on your property and briefly discuss how to get started with the process and how to continue throughout the years to make your tree inspections useful to you and your family. First of all, doing an annual tree inspection is important because it allows us to keep track of the health of our trees over time. To do an annual tree inspection, you don't need a lot of fancy equipment or spend a lot of money. You can use something as basic as a pencil and a piece of paper, or if you would prefer, you could use a phone or some kind of tablet to keep your notes on. The second thing that you need, and that I recommend, is a camera, digital camera preferably, or again a phone or a tablet to take pictures of the tree. So how do you get started? Well, first of all, if you only have one tree, the process is fairly simple. If you have multiple trees on your property, you might find it useful to make a map or a sketch of those trees as they are in relation to houses or other structures. You may want to name those trees, number those trees, label those trees in some way if you have several trees, so you can keep track of those trees individually as time goes on. So the first step would be, of course, to label those trees or name those trees. And I'll use this tree for example. This is a red maple. And this red maple could be tree number 1 or tree A. Or if it's the only red maple on your property, you could just put red maple. And then you would take some general health assessments of the tree. You would look at the trunk to see if there were any defects like splits, cracks, holes, anything like that. You would back up and look at the foliage of the tree, and you would see, is the foliage full and robust? And you would do that by, and I'm not going to do that for the sake of the video right now, but you could walk all the way around the tree and look at the foliage. Then you might look at the limbs, the branches as they come off. Are there any dead or dying limbs? Are there any broken branches? Are there any issues with the limbs? And then you would make those notes very simply in a way that you understand, and the way that you can go back and reference. And then you would back up with your camera or your phone and take some pictures of the tree, the trunk and the crown of the tree at some area where you can go back and recreate those pictures if needed. For example, you may stand by the intersection where your driveway meets the street and take a picture from there. Or you may take a picture by a point, the corner of your house, some way to go back and recreate those in the future. It allows you to track the tree's health over time because you're able to compare basically apples and apples, the same angle, the same thing. You would also want to do your tree inspection at the time of the year where the tree was in full foliage and rapidly growing. So for example, in Louisiana, I recommend that people do their tree inspections in the month of May. By that time, trees are generally in full foliage if they're healthy. The temperature is still cool enough that you can enjoy being outside and doing this work. And it allows you some flexibility in the time that you can pick that date that works best for you. But as you go out and do these pictures, you take pictures and then you notice what's going on, and over time you can track the changes in the tree. And for example, this red maple up into the crown is starting to have some dieback on some of those branches. And if you can start to see that, then you can track the progression of that over time and consult with one of our horticulture agents or forestry agents with the LSU Ag Center if you see an issue, you can contact them and say what's going on, and you can get some management recommendations based on good research and sound management practices that will allow you to keep your tree in prime health. Unfortunately, many times people have not kept up with these annual tree inspections, and by the time they contact an agent like myself, the tree may be in critical condition, and it may cost much more money, time, and effort to keep the tree healthy and restore the tree back to health than it would have if the problem would have been found earlier. So it's important. It's also important if you need to do any pruning, trimming, fertilization. So we've talked briefly about the importance and the usefulness of conducting an annual tree inspection for all the trees on your property. If you have any further questions about how to conduct an annual tree assessment, or if you have any tree care questions, please contact your local LSU Ag Center office, where agents like myself will be glad to assist you with any questions that you may have. Thank you for joining us today.